Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to CarMiZa. Today is January 3rd, 2023, so happy new year to everyone. To date, I am at 670 hours so far on the build and chugging along. So the subject of this video is to talk about the mock-ups and basically designing the trunk and making sure I've got the placement set up properly. So what I wanted to do, I've got some of the equipment over here, the Milberts, the Zapcos. Those are Z600 Zapco, the competition series, and of course the Milberts. And I've got one of the C1 changers. I think I have 5 or 6 of those, and I've got 2 that are pristine, brand new in the box. So, and you can see here, I've got some extra foam. Basically, my thought was to build kind of mock-ups that would represent the size of each piece. So for example, this is the Sony U40D multi-changer adapter. These are the C1 changers. And basically this is just foam. They're doing a bunch of construction, new homes over by our house. So I went over there and there were some guys putting the siding on, and I asked if I could take some of the scraps and they let me. So I got plenty, so it cost me nothing. And then I used, as you can see, like right here, I got skewers, wooden skewers from the dollar store, and I used those. I basically covered them up with tape for the most part, but I used those to basically hold it together so that they're really solid. I can push on them and I'm not gonna, they're not gonna fall apart or whatever. And then I just wrap tape around everything. So they're sturdy, they're solid, and they allow me to mock things up. They're the exact same size of the other, the real components. But this way I'm not scratching or damaging the real components, and also based on the weight. So a lot of this stuff you'll see here in a second is hanging off the rear package shelf. So keeping it light to mock everything up was important. All right, so with that, let's take a look at the trunk and kind of what we're thinking so far. So in the last video, I had completed the dynamat of the trunk, so that's all good. So at this point, I am starting to lay out all of the components. So what I'm doing here is, you can see there's a piece of aluminum. This was on the rear deck with Earl's install, 1/8" aluminum. It was a great idea. I'm gonna probably make a new piece because I'll need to go a little bit wider. So, but I'll mimic this idea. This is great because it doesn't take up much space. It's solid, and I can anchor things to it pretty, and have things very solid on it. When Earl did this trunk, I think it was unique. It was timeless. It was very unique. There was no MDF. There was no panel tools used. Basically, you could see all the equipment and it's all sitting there. And that's the same thing I'm going after. And again, there's a picture of the way he had the car, right? When he did the car, he did not, if you look at pictures of that build, when it was set up like this with the 2 C1 changers and then the ES stuff here with the Milberts, he had one big amplifier, and it was kind of unknown story probably about that. It was a Z300 and then a Z50 that were in a big chassis that Earl got from Zapco. The chassis was about 2/3 of the length of these 2 amplifiers combined, so it was shorter than these. And it hung from the rear deck, and it basically housed both of the amps. The smaller amp was used for the rears when he competed, and the judges told me he needed rear fill. So in this particular setup, what I'm doing is the Z600s, the pair of those, he put those in the car when he put the 15s in. So the Z600s never ran the 13s, which is what I'm going to be doing. So basically, they're going to be a lot more power on the 13, so it's still going to have the same tonality, but more power. So that's obviously going to be a good thing. But in order to fit those in, it was a bunch of work. I did have to do, you can really see it, we'll see in a minute, a little bit of plastic surgery behind the body work in the trunk area to be able to get these to fit. When I set this up, I wanted everything to be on the same plane. So if you notice, kind of looking at it from this angle, everything's going to line up and basically be on the same plane. I think that looks good. It's very important. And you can see just for the video, I threw in the 845 tube that he had. That was just for, basically decoration, just to show more tubes in the car. I think that was a great touch, and I'm going to do the same thing. Obviously, as you can see, everything will be symmetrical. I'm a complete nut about that. And I'm also considering, Earl and I have talked about this, maybe doing a couple of changers. So for example, I've got a lot of changers. I've got, again, I think 5 or 6 C1s, and I've got 9 of the CDX 805s. The 805s are quite a bit smaller. They also have an optical out, and they have the same transport and laser pickup assembly. So effectively, they should sound the same as the C1. I was thinking about doing one in each side here, and then I'm going to be making covers to basically cover up the sides, much like the factory ones were, but mine will be fiberglassed, and they too will be symmetrical. I'm basically going to go as tight to the car as possible, but if you notice, because of the gas filler door, the car is not symmetrical. But when you look at it and it's done, everything will be symmetrical. Looking at this, I basically took you can see I got a piece of string tied to the shock tower in there, and I ran that string, and I kind of like the line. If you look at the way those lines are coming out, I don't know that I want to disrupt these, so I may not do these changers here at all. I have another idea, Earl, if you're listening. I'll talk to you later about what I'm going to do for extra changers, but I'll do that after I get sound. So that is basically what I'm thinking. And there, obviously, I'll still have the spare. There'll be a floor. The entire trunk will be carpeted just like Earl had. He used the factory BMW carpet. I might do something similar, but maybe a little bit thicker pile. And the objective there is to follow the theme of what Rolls-Royce did, right? You know, what they do in their cars. They're really classy. Again, very unique kind of a finish. And in terms of if somebody says, well, carpet, you're kind of cheesing out, carpet is by far the hardest thing to work with when you're dealing with a backed carpet. It does not flex. You really have to work it. All right, so the next thing that's going to happen in the build is replicating this floor for the Milbert. So if you see, there's this wood floor. Earl put that in. He stained it himself, cleared it himself. It is zebra wood. And what I'm going to be doing is I've pulled the floor out about 2.5 inches from where it was initially when he had to build. And I think that really kind of pulls out the equipment more, and really everything kind of pops. And I'm also going to extend this by probably 1.5 inches. The spare will still be able to get in and out, no problem. I've already checked that. But this way you'll have more wood that you're going to be able to see. And then as far as the floor goes, here's kind of my process there. I'm going to build the entire thing, drill all the holes and everything, and have the sides all cut. Everything 100% out of 3/4 inch MDF. And I'm not using MDF in the car. That's just going to be a mock-up. My father he's turning 86 in a week from today, and he is a master woodworker. If anyone's interested, check out McNeBoat, MICHNEBOAT.com, and you'll see his work. That's where I got a lot of my inspiration and my attention to detail. The guy is absolutely a perfectionist. And so what I want to do is I want him to have a hand in this build. So I'm taking the MDF floor that I'm making. I'm going to make the entire thing. I'm going to trace it all out onto paper, roll it up into a tube, ship it out to him. He's in New York. I'm in Arizona. And he is going to make the floor. And again, we're going to use zebra wood. It will be veneered. Instead of this piece was a solid piece of zebra wood, but we're going to go veneer this time. And the reason for that is because some additional things I'll be doing in the trunk along the sides with wood as well. And that's going to require a veneer as opposed to a solid wood. More on that later. And so I will give him basically a proper drawing of the floor. He will make the entire floor. He will then ship that floor to me. He's even going to sign it. I'm going to leave a spot. You know, when I build this out, I'm going to have him sign it right here. I think that's going to be awesome. And then I will stain it and I will clear it myself. And it'll be like a piano finish when I'm done with it. So basically that is the next things that are happening in the car. I also do have to go through and do a full inventory and length measurements of all the wiring that's required. And Steven at Straight Wires is going to be assisting with that. Again, the car will have straight wires cables throughout, and making sure we maintain that level of performance as well. So that should be it for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.